Everybody, this is Cam Jennings coming at you on behalf of EpicConversions.com. Welcome to another episode of Index Card Insights. I hope you guys are doing amazing out there. Listen, guys, today I want to talk about content. I just put on a 2-hour talk last night inside my group mentorship club, ECIC group calls. You can find that at EpicConversions.com. Just look for ECIC group calls. That's my group mentorship club. We put on a group call every single week where I talk about another topic in depth that can help you get ahead with your online business. We cover email marketing, we cover list building, we cover traffic, we cover content creation, we cover all manners of online business. So be sure to get over there and check that out. But last night, I did a talk on content. Now, I think content's really, really important. It's important because it's basically the lifeblood of the internet. You think about it, if you take content away, this whole thing doesn't matter. This whole thing dries up. The attention comes from the content, right? Now, you got a lot of people out there doing content, I think, in my opinion, wrong, especially since ChatGPT came out, especially since we got Google Bard on the scene now, since AI has really hit the scene hot and heavy. Man, I see people abusing AI abusers. And in my opinion, their content has suffered for it. Their content's not as good as it was. It's kind of a shell of what it used to be. I personally don't agree with that. I do think you can leverage AI. I do think AI is an amazing tool. But I think that you have to be the one in the driver's seat, right? You still need to be the one with the instincts for what's going to work and what's not going to work. When you start letting AI sit in the driver's seat, that's when things go off the rails, in my opinion. All right. So, that being said, like I was telling you guys, I did a big talk last night on content, like a bunch of ways for people to produce great content, prolific, impactful content, the kind of content that actually gets you results. And that was great, but you know what? I ran out of time really because we got to over 2 hours, and I was like, you know what? Let's wrap this up, guys. I had a few more I wanted to give, so I thought I'd give them right here on the podcast. So I want to give you 3 ways to generate content today that you might not have thought of, kind of outside the box ways, unique ways that you probably didn't really think about. So that being said, let me go ahead and get into them right here. Okay, so 3 tips on impactful, prolific content. All right, the first one, okay. If you have old content out there already, try revising that old content and recycling it. I don't mean take that old content down, you can leave it up, but what I mean is look at that old content, sort of react to it, and think about what you didn't put in there. What did you not put in that content? Is there extra things that you want to add to that, right? So it's almost like you can do a sequel to that piece of content. Or if it's old and you're unhappy with it, maybe it's time just to revise it, right? And you can make that part of the story of the content. Okay, guys, 2 years ago, I put out this piece of content talking about this, and it was fine, but it's 2 years later, and it's time to revise it. I want to give you guys the new updated version of that. Or, again, it doesn't have to be revised. If that content's still perfectly good, you come back with the sequel, right? It's almost like you take that content and it's not just a movie anymore. Now it's a franchise. You know what I mean? You've turned that piece of content into a franchise now. It's not just like, hey, 2 years ago I gave you 10 ways to get more open rates by email. Well, now you're coming back with 10 more ways. It's been a year. Now you're coming back with 10 more ways. So like in essence, you've taken this piece of content and you've turned it into a franchise. It's not just one piece of content anymore. Now you're going to make multiple pieces of content based off of this one idea. Okay, so it's pretty cool. It's a nice way to look at content. It will help you leverage your content ideas a little bit better and get more out of them. Okay, that's the one. All right, now let me give you another one. All right. Now, this is going to work really, really good for people who are a little long-winded, like me. I'm kind of a long-winded person. Let me get a drink. I'm like, this is Index Card Insights is supposed to be a 10-minute podcast. Very rarely do I ever get this podcast done in under 10 minutes. Usually it's like 20 minutes. I've even had 30-minute episodes before. It just goes too long sometimes. But usually they average between 15 and 20 minutes. And I'll tell you what, man, it's supposed to be 10 minutes. Right? So I'm a little long-winded. I go over a lot. Well, if that's you, if you go over a lot with content, why not break your content into 2 parts, right? Why not cut it in half? You can take content that, was actually scheduled to be one piece of content and actually cut it into 2 parts, right? Make it you can tease the second part in the first part. This works amazingly for written content, it works amazingly for video content, and it works amazingly for audio content. You can use this style in all 3 phases of the game. The fact of the matter is, why make a piece of content one thing when you can actually make it 2 things, right? So, that's my second one, right? How many things out there that you've created that like could have legitimately been 2 parts or 3 parts or like a whole 5-part series, but you chose to release it in like an hour-and-a-half video, or you chose to release it as some kind of an epic, like skyscraper post on your blog or whatever. You might think, well, I have released it in this form. Could I go back and cut it into sections and release it in the other way as well? Because if we're talking about blog posts, you could definitely do that. You could have the skyscraper post. This is like this epic blog post. And then you can go back and like cut it into little pieces. And maybe even like, you could use AI to kind of revise the wording a little bit, change things around a little bit, but essentially just make smaller pieces of content based off that one large piece of content. Take the individual ideas within that piece of content and make them their own smaller pieces of content. So in this way, you can turn like one piece of content into like 4 or 5 or 6 pieces of content. Pretty cool, right? So when you look at your content, it's really like, okay, this is meant to be like one piece of content, but could it be broken into parts, right? Should I make this a series instead of just one thing, right? Sometimes you can. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. Maybe you got an 8-minute podcast, and maybe that's just what it is. It's not meant to be broken up into little pieces. No one wants to listen to like a 1-minute podcast, or whatever. But sometimes, if you're like me, you can be a little long-winded and you can go over, then, breaking up your content can really help you like multiply how much content you have. So that's the second one. Now the third one's called the what's missing tactic. Now, how does this work? Well, let's say you watch an interesting YouTube video that's in your niche, or you watch an interesting, let's just say YouTube video, for example. This works with other pieces of content, not just YouTube, but let's just use YouTube. Well, there's a lot of like online free tools right now that will let you just like transcribe a YouTube video instantly. Like it's like very instant, like within a few seconds, any YouTube video you want. And so I'm not going to go into where these tools are and all that stuff right now. I'm not going to get into that. I want to keep this podcast short, but like, you can easily have the video transcribed, very, very simply. And now you got this written text version of this video that inspired you. It's not your video, it's someone else's video, but you got this text version of the video that inspired you. You take that text over to ChatGPT, and I would use ChatGPT for this, not Google Bard, because Google Bard is cool, but like it's got like a limit on how much text you can input. So this one's better for ChatGPT. Anyways, you can take it over to ChatGPT and you can say, hey, could you summarize this transcription for me? And go ahead and input it in there. ChatGPT will summarize it for you. And then you can go ahead and say, okay, cool. So, can you give me like 3 to 5 things that are missing from this article? Like, what are a couple of questions you have about this subject? Right? So then ChatGPT will go ahead and give you 3 to 5 questions that it has that weren't covered in that video, right? So now you can look at those 3 to 5 questions and you can decide if any of that stuff resonates with you. Could you talk about one of those subjects? Now, this is a great way to produce a fresh, unique piece of content that's based off of something you already liked. It was a subject that resonated with you. And if it resonated with you, it's probably going to resonate with some other people as well. But, this is kind of a play off of an old tactic that I have used for many, many years. And that's something I used to call adding my 2 cents. That's where I take someone else's content and I say, that's a really good piece of content. I love what you have to say. What do I have to say that's meaningful that would add to this conversation? And that becomes my piece of content, right? Because that was a piece of content that I loved. I resonated with it. What do I have to add to the conversation, right? So the whole ChatGPT thing, it's kind of a play off of that add your 2 cents to the conversation thing. So anyways, I hope those 3 things help you. They're just designed to help you get more content out there that's impactful, that's meaningful, that people actually resonate with. And it's meant to help you do it at a prolific level. Now listen, again, that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you want more of this stuff, make sure you get over to ECIC Group Calls. That's at epicconversions.com. Look for ECIC Group Calls. epicconversions.com, epicconversions.com, epicconversions.com. Get over there and check it out. My mentorship club, ECIC Group Calls. I just did a 2-hour presentation on content strategy, okay? And it is awesome. You're going to love it. If you like these 3 tips, that's nothing compared to what I put in there. So be sure to get over to epicconversions.com. Look for ECIC Group Calls. My mentorship program is mega cheap, okay? It shouldn't be this cheap. It's actually going to go up in price at the end of the year. But I'm talking about like $1.56 a day, okay? If you can't afford $1.56 a day to better yourself in online business, you have to question how much you really care about your online business. That's what I think. No judgment. I'm just saying you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself a hard question if you can't afford to spend $1.56 a day. That's just my opinion. Anyways, listen, that's all I got. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll see you in ECIC Group Calls. Be sure to get over to epicconversions.com and check it out. Also, grab your free copy of 12 Secrets while you're over there. All right, now, peace.